Hey guys, Angus from Spotted Hog Airsoft here today with another Airsoft video review. Now today we're going to be taking a look at a gas blowback pistol, which is a little odd seeing as how it's a colder weather time of year. However, we're going to be taking a look at the Red Jacket CO2 Airsoft Blowback 1911 pistol. Now if you're interested in picking this thing up, there'll be a link down below in the description to airsoftstation.com where you can buy it for about $130. Now overall, this is a pretty nice and solid pistol, so let's hop straight into this video. Alright, now hopping directly into the video review, let's go ahead and start off like we always do by discussing this gun's construction. Now this Red Jacket 1911 is advertised as being full metal, and let me tell you that's pretty much entirely true. There are really only two plastic pieces on this gun, and those do include your rather nice and unique looking textured grips, as well as that orange tip on the front of the gun. Otherwise, the rest of the weapon is constructed entirely of metal. That includes your slide, your iron sights, the frame of the pistol, the trigger, all your extremities such as your hammer, your safety, your magazine release, as well as your magazine. This is almost entirely constructed of metal with the exception of the lip up top and the foot at the bottom. Two pieces that can be fragile, so just be careful not to really beat up or drop this magazine or anything like that. Otherwise though, the full metal construction feels excellent, nice and solid, really nothing cheaply made about this gun whatsoever as far as external construction goes. You'll also notice there are rather nice trademarks on this weapon. They are simply painted on. Looking here at the left side of the weapon, we do see Red Jacket painted nice and bright on the side of the slide there, and if you were to flip over the gun, you will find one more trademark as well as a bunch of painted on warnings, a serial number, and a unfortunately made in Taiwan. So overall the trademarks do look rather nice. Just keep in mind they're painted on, meaning that they'll probably fade eventually. It's not like they're engraved and there to stay. When it comes to internals of this pistol, it is OEM'd by KWC, and I've had good experiences with those in the past, especially their CO2 guns, and I expect the same to this pistol. As far as gas efficiency goes, these CO2s tend to be a little bit better for winter weather airsofting. Of course, keep in mind, like any gas pistol, the colder the weather, the less gas efficient your gun will be. Otherwise, though, the internals get the job done and it performs pretty well, as you'll see later in the video. Now, hopping directly into some features of this Red Jacket 1911, a pretty standard one in your gas blowback pistols would be a functional slide lock. Now, obviously, when you're going and firing all those rounds, eventually you're going to come to your last one. And in this case, when you fire that last round, and there's no BB left to be fired, the slide will come back and lock like so, as this functional slide lock does activate. This is a pretty cool and realistic feature, and hey, it also lets you know when you're out of BBs and need to change magazines. When you want to release the slide lock, simply press downward on it like so, and the slide will rocket forward. It's a pretty neat and cool feature, standard but always cool. Now the slide lock's pretty cool and all, but in my opinion when it comes to a GBB pistol, there's one feature that's more important than any other, and that would be your gun's magazine, seeing as how, well, that's where the gas that powers the gun is stored. In order to eject this 1911's magazine, you want to push in on the release located on the left side of the gun, and when you do that, the mag will just pop out, so be prepared to catch it if you're holding the weapon upright. Put simply, the included magazine is a metal 1911 CO2 style airsoft magazine. It holds a total of about 15 rounds and is very easy to load, seeing as how this spring is capable of being locked down, so you don't have to hold it down manually when you actually go to load the BBs in the mag. The BBs fill up in a staggered fashion. Just make sure they are lined up correctly, otherwise that can cause some feeding issues down the road. And also something to, whine about with this magazine would be that the lip is a little bit tight. You really do have to press those BBs in order to get them to drop in. I guess it's better than being loose. As far as the magazine's CO2 housing goes, it's just simply located in the side of the magazine. This gun does take 12 gram CO2 cartridges inserted in its magazine, pardon me there. In order to loosen or tighten the CO2 inward, you take the included Allen key and use it to loosen or tighten this screw down to the bottom in order to release or lock in your CO2. In order to tell your CO2 is locked in, just listen for that slight hiss to let you know CO2 is indeed flowing through the magazine. Overall, really nothing to complain about. It's an easy process to change a CO2. I love the fact the spring locks down so I don't have to hold it there myself, and the only thing I could whine about is a tight mag lip. Now the 1911's iron sights are pretty standard, basically what you'd find on your standard 1911. As far as your rear sight goes, it's what I like to call the pyramid sight. Two bricks with a slit in the middle to line up with your front sight. I especially like the bright white dots located on the rear sight, making this very easy to acquire. When I raise my gun up right away, gotta find my sights. The bright white dots allow me to acquire it quickly. As far as the front sight goes, it's just your standard basic little sight post. It's meant to be lined up with your eye when you're aiming through the rear sight. Again, we find that bright white dot, making it very easy to adjust your eye to when you raise the gun right up. Overall, the iron sights in the gun are pretty accurate to it. As you'll see later in the performance test portion of the video, they do get the job done. Of course, they are what you're stuck with, seeing as how it's not like you're putting a scope on this pistol. As far as the gun's safety goes, it's pretty nice. It's located at the rear of the weapon, just behind the pistol grip itself, and kind of just in front of the hammer. When the gun is capable of firing, you'll know because the safety is flipped downward, so it's almost touching the grip, and also, obviously, that bright red dot will be exposed. If you were to flip the switch upward, so that the red dot is covered and it's almost angled towards the sky, then the weapon is now unsafe and the trigger cannot be pulled. Overall, this is a rather nice safety because it's easily accessible. Let's say suddenly I have to go off the field or something like that. I can easily just flip my thumb backward, snap the gun off fire to safe. Very easy to access safety, and it's also nice, crisp, easy to move. Something else nice about the Red Jacket 1911 would be a neat little tactical rail located in the front there for you to add some kind of accessory, say a flashlight or a laser. It's just a small little rail, but hey, in my book, customization is always a plus. Now this 1911 does have an adjustable hop-up. First things first when it comes to wanting to access it, because you do unfortunately have to break the gun down. A little bit inconvenient, but it's what you have to do with most pistols. First things first, you do want to make sure your magazine is out of the gun. At that point, make sure your gun's off safe so you can go ahead cock the hammer back like so. And this is where things can get a little bit annoying. You want to flip your slide lock upward carefully, push it outward from the other side, and eventually after a little bit of fighting, as you can see, it'll pop outward like so. At that point, the weapon slide will be removed, revealing your hop-up underneath. Now the gun's hop-up, which is that rather small little gear right there, is actually pretty powerful and effective, as you guys will see in just a few moments. I actually noticed with 0.25 grams and the hop-up shut all the way off, it seemed like they were still too light for this pistol. I actually ended up using 0.28 grams later in the video. So overall, it's a pretty easy to access and move hop-up. You just have to break a couple things down, but it's quite powerful, especially in a little pistol like this. In order to put the gun back together, simply reverse the process, much easier than taking it apart. So alright, you guys heard me hint at it a little bit there. It's time for the performance test portion of our video. We're going to go outside, take a few shots at a target, as well as chrono this pistol to see how hard it's shooting, as well as how accurate and effective its hop-up is. Keep in mind though, this is a warmer weather gun, being a gas blowback pistol, and it's only about 40 degrees outward. Therefore, a lot of our results will be a little bit reduced than what we'd see in warmer weather. Just keep that in mind. For the chrono portion of the video, I loaded up with 0.2 gram BBs and also popped in a fresh 12 gram CO2 cartridge to see just how hard this gun was firing in the 40-degree temperatures. First, for our first shot, we saw about 330, and from there it dumbed down to about 300 or 310 feet per second. Given the colder conditions, I imagine this thing would probably start off at maybe 360 in warmer weather and dumb down to maybe the 340 FPS area. Either way, in this cold or those regular temperatures, this is exactly what I'd want to see from a pistol. Nothing too ridiculous. For the accuracy test portion of the video, I changed over to 0.28 gram BBs, adjusted my pistol's hop-up, and took aim from about 60 feet away. In my opinion, ideal pistol shooting distance. Now, out of the 13 shots I believe I fired, I hit the target every single time pretty consistently as well. So overall, this gun was very accurate. I was quite pleased with it. One thing to note though is that this hop-up was actually quite powerful. Originally I was trying to use 0.25s, but even with the hop-up shut all the way off, those things are really going flying. So the 0.28s were certainly something I needed to use with this pistol to keep. Alright, and with those final shots being fired, we can go ahead and hop into the final conclusion of this review. Overall, personally, I found the Red Jacket 1911 CO2 blowback airsoft pistol to be pretty nice. I'm not necessarily a huge fan of pistols or 1911s, but I like the unique look of this gun, and I especially like that nice big old Red Jacket trademark there across the slide. In my opinion, it really makes the gun stand out and look cool. When it comes to things I didn't like about the gun, they're very minor, mainly based on preferences, a lot of them having to do with the magazine. I'm not necessarily a huge fan of the plastic magazine lip because it's a very important part, and if it gets chipped, it can really screw up your whole feeding process and render that magazine useless. Otherwise, I didn't care for the incredibly over-effective hop-up. I thought it was really funny how the .25s rocketed out of the barrel, shooting straight up in the air, even when the hop-up was off. I'm not sure if that's just a fluke with this gun, but in my opinion, a little bit of a con because I have to use the heavier BBs instead of my standard old 2.5s, but not necessarily something huge to complain about. Otherwise, though, the gun looks unique, feels pretty darn solid, and the performance, as we saw, was pretty darn nice. It actually operated well inside the colder weather, a little bit less gas efficient. In the colder weather, 40 degrees, maybe 50 shots per cartridge. But otherwise, though, the accuracy was spot on, and the FPS was pretty consistent, exactly where I'd want to see it for a pistol. So overall, this is a nice 1911. Certainly recommend it for your airsoft pistol collection. And hey, might as well take it out in the field as well because the performance is pretty rock solid. solid on this gun. With that being said, thanks for watching, guys. This has been Spotted Hog Airsoft's review of the Red Jacket 1911 CO2 Airsoft BlowBack pistol. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.